Hello and welcome to the Business of Meetings podcast. I'm Eric Rosenberg and today I'm speaking with Michel Falcon. If you've been to Toronto, you know about Baro Restaurant. What you might not know is how Michel and his business partner grow this restaurant and a second location in a few years from zero to $15 million in revenue and a team of about 200 people. Michel is really focused on culture and people first. He's going to tell us about those three important things: how you define your values and base everything on those values, how you recruit people, and how you onboard people so that thanks to them, you are being successful. Enjoy listening to Michel Falcon. Hello and welcome on the Business of Meetings podcast. I'm Eric Rosenberg, and today my guest is an amazing entrepreneur who has started amazing restaurant, tremendous business focusing on people first. He's going to share that with us. Michel Falcon is an entrepreneur from Toronto. How are you, Michel?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be having this conversation with you.
Me too. And thank you for taking the time. So you and other partner, you started from scratch in two different locations in Toronto in the most competitive place, and in few years you were able to reach $15 million in revenue with close to 200 people. How did you do that?
Yeah, so within 2 years it was $16 million a year in revenue, closer toward 200 employees. And these restaurants aren't just small mom and pop operations. They are large format, 8,000 to 16,000 square feet, complex operations. And how we did that, there's no single answer, but there are some commonalities that will be weaved through what I share with you. Uh-huh. The first thing, and I know that this is going to sound cliche, and I know people are going to say, I've heard this before, but the foundation of the company was built on the culture that we wanted to grow within. Now, what I mean by that is before we even opened our doors to our first venue, I was helping my business partners really understand how are we going to behave, not just when we open our doors, but what are we trying to build for the next 2, 3, 5, or 10 years? And what can we do now to behave like a company that does $100 million a year in sales, but aren't there yet?
Right.
That's the thing that I really like about company culture, is that there are many things that you can do to act like a $1 billion brand without actually being one.
Can you give us some example of that?
Yeah. So core values. Every entrepreneur has heard that core values matter, and you should have core values within your company. I would argue that you shouldn't have core values unless you're going to embed them into the DNA of the company and be willing to hire and fire people according to the values of the organization. Mm-hmm. That's one of the first things that we did, is like, what do we want the values of the company to be? Because my partners and I aren't always going to be in our venues every single day.
Right.
So how can we ensure that our team members are still moving forward without our presence? So I call that leading without presence. We created core values. I can recite them: celebration, ownership, foresight, integrity, and humility. And there's little subscripts that go with each.
Sorry, can you repeat the core values, please?
Celebration, ownership, foresight, integrity, and humility.
Okay.
You're testing me.
No. But actually now the sound is even better when you hold the mic like this.
Well, I'll tell you, I test myself. Because if I expect our hostess or our bartender or our dishwasher or our general manager to know our core values, which I do, and I test them often when I see them in our building, I'll just randomly select 3 people at a time and ask them to recite our core values. And I expect them to recite them exactly how I just recited them to you. So I need to be living within the culture just as much as our team members are. I need to be a flag bearer. I need to be the ambassador for their organization. From there, how we achieve that growth, there are many other initiatives that we built. And remember, we weren't always a near $20 million company. When we started, we were zero revenue, zero employees when we were conceptualizing some of these initiatives and tactics, if you will. Next came, how do we want to hire? Right, we knew our first venue was going to need 100 employees, and we were going to need to hire those 100 employees in about a 30-day period. And we weren't just going to hire everyone that we met, because often as entrepreneurs, sometimes we need to hire somebody quickly. And it's almost like that person sits in front of us, we ask them some questions, and we realize, you know what, this person has a pulse, they're breathing great, they can start tomorrow, you're hired, right? You like sports? Yes, you're hired, right? Like, and we wonder why we have high employee turnover. We wonder why our guest satisfaction is low. It's because we don't have an engaged team, and there's a ripple effect. We wonder, why am I not making a profit? Well, your whole team is flipping all of the time. They're not aligned. They're not productive. So I always start, when I advise a company, whether it's Subway, Electronic Arts, or Volkswagen, or if I'm building a company for myself, the next thing I'm going to look at is, what is our interview process like? Because I don't want to be that type of company that just hires somebody because they can start tomorrow. That's a surefire way to have high employee turnover and bad guest satisfaction. So we created this module that I call the People First Culture Hiring Pyramid. It's hard to get a job with us, but when you do, you're part of the club, if you will, right? It's very similar to, maybe you have to apply to be a member of a golf country club or some sort of organization or association. They don't take everyone, right? Like Ivy League schools don't take everyone, right? You got to go through an admissions process. Or maybe on a personal level, if you hosted a housewarming party, would you just invite strangers into your home? No, you'd probably be pretty selective in who you let into the party, because the party is often one of the better events you've gone to when it's made up of like-minded people. They laugh at the same things. They have the same demeanor and so forth. So why don't we treat our businesses like we do our weddings? We don't just we don't invite everybody, right? Or else that would be, perhaps a peculiar wedding. So we built this hiring pyramid according to our core values. So one of the steps in our interview process is the culture interview. We ask 2 questions per core value that we have. So 2 questions to understand if Eric, the person that is looking to be one of our bartenders, is humble, does he have integrity, and so forth. And then we ask 2 other questions. And these answers get put into Eric's employee file if we so choose to make Eric an offer. So Eric, let's role play here. Pretend you are who you are, and you are looking to apply to be a bartender at one of our venues. We're going to ask you a question. We're going to say, what is an indulgence that you cannot live without that costs less than $20? How would you respond to that? How would you respond to that? What is an indulgence that you can't live without? Like for me, my indulgence. Say that again.
Belgian milk chocolate.
Perfect. That one's very easy, and I know why you like it. So I'm going to say, okay, great. I write that answer down, and then I'm going to ask you the next question. What is a non-work related skill set or experience that you would like to obtain or experience in the next 12 months? So essentially, what is it? What's something you want to learn that's not related?
Flying a Cyrus jet.
Flying a jet. Okay, great. That one's a little more difficult, but I can work with it. Okay, great. On with the culture interview. Now we're going to try to understand if you have the skill to be a bartender. And notice the separation between the two. I care about whether Eric is going to fit within our culture before I understand if he knows how to make a martini. Because I can teach you how to make a martini.
Mm-hmm.
Your resume is going to tell me if you know how to make a martini. But your resume is not going to tell me if you are a jerk. Your resume is not going to tell me if you're going to fit within your culture. So when I coach my management team, I say, I want you to ask the culture questions first, always. And it's the model that we've used for years.
Beautiful.
And if that person doesn't make you feel excited, if you don't feel like they would fit in at our company party, because maybe they're a little arrogant, you pick up on that, exit them from the interview immediately. I don't take them to the skill set interview because it's irrelevant. I don't care if Eric is won a cocktail competition for all of Canada or the US. If you don't fit within our culture, you're not going to get a job with us, because I'm going to borrow something from Netflix. The CEO and co-founder of Netflix, a gentleman named Reed Hastings, said something that I remind myself of often, and he said, "We are not willing to tolerate brilliant jerks because the cost of teamwork is too high."
I love it.
The first time I heard that, I said, I was upset, because I was like, why didn't I think of that? That's like a tattoo worthy quote. But I remind myself of that, and I remind my management team of that as often. So let's say Eric passes our interview process, the whole hiring pyramid. Anybody that's listening can feel free to email me, and I can send you an image of the hiring pyramid. But
And
now,
your email is michel@michelfalcon.com.
that's correct. Yes. So Eric is now, today is April 24th, I believe. Let's
Yes.
say Eric's start date is April 29th. Okay. So April 29th is your first day.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably going to be hiring some other people. So there's going to be some other peers of yours joining your first day. Maybe it's another bartender, and maybe it's a sous chef. Well, the first thing that we're going to ask you to do is you're going to come into our training room, and we're going to train you on our culture, our core values. How were they created? Why were they created? And so forth. As you enter the training room on your first day, within the first hour, you're going to see a bag at your little station, and your other peers will have their bags too. And it's very apparent that there's something in there, and it has a card with your name on it. So obviously you know it's for you. In your bag is going to be a handwritten card from one of the owners of the company, perhaps myself or one of my partners. And it says something along the lines of, "Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for choosing us. We can't wait to build this company with you. Da, 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 da." And then we sign it, right? But the language matters. Like, a card is a card, right? But it's really the message inside. Like, thank you for choosing us. Because Eric is obviously a high caliber person, because he passed our interview process. He's met a lot of people, and all of us said, Eric's the person. We need Eric. Eric could have easily been hired by our competitors, but he chose us. So thank you for choosing us. And inside that bag is your Belgium milk chocolate, you said, right?
Love it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, and then maybe your peer that is hired with you said pepperoni pizza. So there's a gift certificate to the best pizza place in the city. And then the next person said Mountain Dew. I don't know. I'm making it up at this point. I don't know anybody who actually genuinely likes Mountain Dew. But that's beyond the point.
I don't even know what it is.
It's an awful drink that should be banned because it's so much sugar in it. But now let's unpack why we do this. Okay, on the surface, this is nice. I work for a nice company. Okay,
right.
But there's rhyme and reason why I do this. I'm about to ask you, Eric, our newest bartender, to deliver an experience to our customers that they've never seen before, represent the brand well, deliver great customer experiences. Shame on me as one of your leaders if I don't teach you how to do that by way of doing it to you first. Because no employer has ever done that for you in that respect. Maybe they've done something nice, but maybe not something as specific as that. It's also nice. I really like seeing the new employees being like, hey, what'd you get? Oh, and they kind of, it bridges the gap. It removes that barrier of awkwardness.
And suddenly they know that I like Belgian milk chocolate and that you like pepperoni pizza.
There you go. But then there's another reason that I do this as well. You're about to go into training, right? You're in the training room. I need your engagement to be really high. Because if your engagement is high while you're learning something, it's more likely that you're going to retain that knowledge sooner. And I did that by a $20 gift. Like every company can afford that. Maybe I should walk that back. Every company that wants to afford it will figure it out.
Yeah.
I've worked with a company, Eric, a large organization here in Canada, and they're publicly traded. I know how much money they make a year. Anybody could find out. And they said I was going to work with them and do some advisory work for them. But one of the people in the room said, we can't afford this. We have too many employees. You can afford it. You're just choosing not to by spending money somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to suggest that this is a better idea than what you're spending your other money on, but it's not fair to say that you can't afford it. You're choosing not to afford it.
Michel, absolutely. And as you know, this podcast is primarily directed to independent business owners. And so we're not talking about even listed companies. So most of us we do not anything, but we do whatever we want with the money in terms of investment. And I think to your point, if you cannot afford $20 per new employee, seriously.
So yes, and I share this with small businesses as well, because one day, if you so choose, you might be a medium-sized business. You might grow to be a large business. Start building these systems and processes now when you're lean and nimble, when it's not hard to rewire the company.
Right. So can I just go back when you start, because you mentioned obviously the way you're going to recruit 100 people in 30 days, the way you approach the interviews. It's easy to do today because Baro is like, it's a brand. Everybody knows that in Toronto and everywhere. Anybody who's been to Toronto knows about Baro. But how do you do that when you start? Because nobody knows even the name Baro.
Yeah, it was very hard. The second time when we opened our second location, it became easier because we could say, this is brought to you by the people that built Baro.
Right.
It was extraordinarily hard. One of my great career challenges. I'm estimating that we probably met 700 people, and of the 700, we only hired 100 because it just made sense. They passed the interview. We met a lot of people. It really came down to our enthusiasm as entrepreneurs, as leaders, and really getting that candidate excited about something they did not even know what it was. We did have some abilities to say, hey, it's going to be at this venue, which was a very visible venue on a very popular street. So people are like, if they're taking that venue, then they must be somebody. We had some credibility as well as individuals, as business owners, word of mouth. It was hard because people didn't really know the brand at all. To your point, there was no brand awareness, but it really came down to our enthusiasm. We shared the core values of the company, said, this is why we created them. This is why we're going to be different. This is why I think you would like to work with us. So it was really, people took a chance on us.
That's great. And before we go further into the process, or I'm hired as your new bartender, what's going to happen next? I'm just thinking of two examples. Again, independent business owners, the meetings and event industry. Whether I'm starting my new business, it's probably easier to define first the values and go with it. And most of us already have our own business. Some of us have 20, 30 employees. Some are with 4 or 5. When you've been working for already several years, how do you kind of go back to the basics, the foundation, working on the values and what could happen? Because you might not have everybody staying because they're not aligned with the value. I was going to say with the new values, but no, they're not aligned with the values that are now finally expressed and were not in the past.
Very good question. I've had this asked me many times. One person at an event I was speaking at said, well, does that mean we have to go back to our businesses and fire everybody that doesn't live within our values? I was like, no, of course not. No. And this is why. So let's say, Eric, to use you as an example, let's say that Eric is motivated to redefine his values or make sure that they're more important than ever before, or maybe recreate them, whatever position the entrepreneur is in. And you come back to the business, you have 5 employees, 30 employees, 100 employees, or whatever. And you say, these are our values. These are why I created them. These are why they're important. And then you realize that, 7 people here, you just have this intuition, they don't fit within these values, or they're not going to fit within these values. No, you should not fire them because you're the one that hired them in the first place. So as a leader, you have to take the ownership over helping them turn a corner. So you would have to present it to each individual that you suspect aren't going to really fit within the values and say, have a candid conversation and say, in better words than this, but for now, I don't believe that you've been living within our values, or this is what I need you to do to embrace these values. And this is why it's important to me. And this is why I believe it will be important to you and your career growth. Because people are always going to ask, Eric, what's in it for me? Right? Whether they say that or not, they're thinking it in one way or another. Then you hope, Eric, that these people turn a corner and they end up being great company culture ambassadors for you. They deliver great experiences. They sell, they service well, and many other good things. But I wasn't born yesterday. Some people aren't gonna adapt for many reasons that you and I may not know about.
Right.
You try it again. Okay, you bring it to their attention one more time. Give them another opportunity to live within those values. But not everybody's going to conform. Now would be the appropriate time to offboard them because they're not fitting within what you want for the company. And quite frankly, they might want to leave on their own accord, which has happened, right? I've had people leave our team on their own accord saying, you know what, this isn't the company for me. No hard feelings.
No, of course not.
There's no company that can really embrace everyone's needs and desires. Some just resonate with other people and others don't. But it is the leader's responsibility to help each team member conform. And I can tell you as an entrepreneur, the greatest feeling or kind of sentiment that I can have is when there's a team member who's struggling and you help them turn their game around and they start performing better. That's a really good feeling for me. And anybody that cares about people and wants to put people before themselves so that they can build a successful business, be a servant leader, they get a lot of kicks out of that and a lot of fulfillment and engagement. I can tell you firsthand that when we did receive dividend checks when business was good in hospitality, I would go to the bank and I would go deposit it, or it would be wired to me through our finance department. And I would feel nice, right? For 10 seconds, like, nice, you earned some money, nice. But that feeling dissipates really quickly because I'm not driven by money. Money is an outcome. I like it just as much as everyone else does, but it's not the thing that gets me out of bed, because I think that's a fleeting feeling. It leaves you really quickly, and I don't want to define myself by money. But what I do define myself by, and I hope I recognize for this today and going forward, is like, that person really cared about my career, or I revere them because he or she is a servant leader. Don't you think you're going to build an aligned team that treats your customers well, treats your vendors, your suppliers well, and it makes our jobs as leaders infinitely more manageable when we have team members that we can rely on to help grow the business? You're still going to get that dividend check. You'll still earn that profitability, but you also get much more, and much more that engagement for me, because of fulfilling other people's careers and having them say, you know what, thank you, nobody's ever led me this way before. That's a fantastic feeling, and that's what gets me out of bed.
That's awesome. Michel, you mentioned twice already servant leadership.
Yes.
I'm totally aligned with you, but I'm not sure everybody knows what it is exactly. So can you speak a little bit about that? Because I believe that could inspire a lot of people listening.
Yeah, it's really in the title, right? So as a leader, you're the servant to others. But let me put it another way. A servant leader believes that they're actually the least important person in the business. I can give you examples. Like, when it comes to our venues, I don't know how to cook a steak without burning it. I don't know how to make a nice cocktail. I don't really. I have my place in the business, and to piggyback off of what I said a moment ago, and it's to lead people, and deliver great experiences to customers and employees and build our culture. That's my responsibility. But I can tell you that if our most popular bartender, Riley, we have many popular bartenders, but let's use Riley as an example. If he was absent from the business for a week, his regular customers would be like, "Where's Riley? I came here to see him." Nobody's asking where Michel Falcon is. I guarantee you. I could go missing for 3 months and nobody would ask where I was. And, it sounds a little upsetting because, you like to be, you want to be liked, but I'm irrelevant, right? I have my place behind the scenes, but it's the people that we entrust to build relationships with our customers who are the most important and who need to be served. So my responsibility is to ensure that our team members, the ones who are customer facing and the ones that are not, are equipped with the right tools, education, and motivation to succeed. And then I get out of their way. When restaurants were open, and when we were operating, you wouldn't see me on a Friday, Saturday night, our busiest evenings, in their way. That's not my role as a servant leader. It's just to make sure that they're prepared for success, and if they need something, I need to figure it out for them. So essentially, it's I don't know when or where, but maybe in my father's era. My father's 75 years old. He's a South American man, very hard-nosed, South American person. I always joke. I say my dad has told me he loves me one time, and I think that was by accident. But he does love me. He just he's a hard-nosed person, not a much emotion. But when I talk to him about some of the things that we are doing for our employees, it's almost like he wants to tell me, whatever happened to telling your employees to show up on time, shut up, and start working, and don't ask questions, right? But that's the era that he grew up in, right? But if you think about my industry, hospitality, Gordon Ramsay, is if you've ever seen his show, he's erratic, he's yelling and so forth. And, I'm not naive. It's probably played up for television a little bit.
Right.
But there are some companies that are led by people like that.
Yep.
Who wants to work for somebody like that? I guarantee you, even if they do stay with you because they need to pay their bills, they're going home and resenting you. They don't have any kind things to say about you.
No.
Don't you care about, I do care about what people think.
I do as well. I do as well. And I think that's where the profit is coming with the culture. I do care. I'm totally 150% with you. And I think as well that because you care and because you care for the people working for you, they will give a better experience to your customer and the bottom line will be impacted. So that's the virtual circle, if you want.
Yeah, well, so I'm often asked, Michel, if this makes monetary sense, if this is the right thing to do, why doesn't everybody do it? And I've thought about this question, and my answer is threefold. One, the leader doesn't have the DNA for this. They don't know how to care about somebody other than themselves or immediate family.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're ultimately asking yourself to care about a stranger. The employees that you hire are strangers to you at the beginning. You need to be a compassionate, empathetic person to actually want to do something for somebody that you barely have a relationship with, but you hope will grow a relationship. So that's the first thing, DNA. The second thing is long-term and short-term thinking. If I was to invest in some of the strategies that I've talked about, like the $20 gift or the 1 year gesture, I'll explain what that is in a moment. That costs money to do that. But I can't tell you when you're going to see the return on investment of that, right? That might take a month, 90 days, a year to see that value come, because relationships take a while to build.
Mm-hmm.
What's the alternative? You give an entrepreneur $100 and say, take this $100 and invest in something to grow your company. Option A is invest in people and relationships. Okay, you're not going to see the value of that $100 for 6 months. Okay, option B is take that $100 and buy Facebook ads. You could see that return on investment tomorrow. So that's the difference between long-term and short-term thinking with some entrepreneurs is now, gimme. I'm trying to build a business for decades, not for the next 6 months. And then the third reason why some entrepreneurs won't kind of fully commit to this is their own legacy. They might be close to retirement. Why should I change? Things are going okay. I don't want to have to rewire the DNA of this company. So those are the three reasons why I've seen why some people won't make this change. To be honest, some people shouldn't be in leadership positions.
Oh, yes.
Right? That's how you lead?
Yeah.
But the one year.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask you.
I glossed over on that earlier. Okay, so if Eric stays with us for 1 year, Eric the bartender, right? If he stays for us for 1 year, we had recorded that he said that he wanted to learn to fly a particular plane, right?
A Cirrus jet.
Okay. We're going to figure out a way to get him at least one lesson or maybe a simulated model of it or something like that. Nice. And throughout the entire year, it's in his employee file. So 6 months after he started working with us, our HR department will get an alert saying, find out if Eric's already learned that. And then somebody in the company is going to do some digging to learn if you've already experienced that or not. If you haven't, that's probably going to be the 1 year gesture. And then we're going to come back to you and say, Eric, it's your 1 year anniversary. The day's off. You have the day off. We're going to pay you for your day off. And this is what we're doing for you.
Nice.
Now, we have a budget of that of $500 per employee. Okay. So when I presented this idea to my partners and they did the quick math, $500 times 200 employees, now we're talking some real money here, right? One of my partners' eyeballs rolled into the back of his head like a slot machine because you could tell he was just calculating the numbers. But then I said, guys, and I know how to have this conversation. So I said, guys, how much money do we lose every year by having
to retrain people?
Exactly. How much money, what would it mean in savings if we did something that increased our employee retention by 5%?
Yeah.
I bet you that number is higher than what I'm suggesting right now. Mm-hmm. But it goes back to the long-term, short-term thinking. Some people are just like, no way. That's tens of thousands of dollars that you're asking for. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, well, that's the short-term thinking. If the numbers make sense, why wouldn't we do it? Absolutely. If they don't make sense, then we have to analyze it a little bit longer.
That reminds me of the story where the CEO is speaking with the CFO, and the CFO says, imagine we train them and then they leave us. And the CEO said, and imagine we don't train them and they stay.
That's another quote I really wish I came up with. I'm a sucker for quotes. It's almost like I find religion in quotes because it's just very insightful, thought-provoking.
Now, let me give you another quote then. As a future bartender at Baro, my grandfather was always saying, if two people tell you that you're drunk, go to bed. and to that, I think we hear many times people saying, culture is important, culture is important, culture is important. And then the next thing you do is not related to culture. So I just want to finish the process, if you want, for all the independent business owners that are listening to us. One is define your value. Two is all the training, the recruiting aspect. And three is the follow-up of this recruitment in the 6 months and a year. What happened in between and what happened after so that you really instill the culture, especially when you look in the hospitality industry and in a restaurant, where it's not necessarily the first example that people will think about for having high retention in the team? So
for me, it's really threefold in where you start. It's, as you mentioned, it's what is the values of the company? Why are we coming to work? And so forth. Second, it's the interview process. And third, is the onboarding. So it starts with that $20 question. It starts with what type of training material are we giving them? Is it premium or are we training them at all properly? So there's that. Starbucks has the former CEO, Howard Schultz from Starbucks, said something that I'm paraphrasing this one because it's a longer quote, but he said, people think that we are a great advertising company, but we actually don't advertise traditionally. We take what the typical company spends in traditional advertising and actually invest it into training because that is our marketing. So I'm paraphrasing it, but are you really going to argue Starbucks' success? Really? Like, you might not like their coffee. That's fair. But are you going to argue the success that they've had?
Not unfair or fair and unfair. I like the coffee there.
It's okay. It's okay. But I've had a better cup of coffee, right? So
there's the Canadian, of course.
But along with that, so now that you've solidified and started to make some, traction with the culture and the employees, now is time to start thinking about the customer. I don't believe the customer is always right. It's actually a saying that I don't agree with because I've seen some customers not be so great. I've seen some customers belittle and berate our employees. And I can tell you it's much more difficult to replace a high-performing employee than it is one customer.
Right.
But nevertheless, we are very customer-centric. So now we start thinking of like, what are some things that we can do for our customers? And my goal is always to build experiences for our customers that they've never seen before in the industry. And that could be really defined by anything, right? Like it could be that entrepreneur, that business owner, or that company, they respond to emails so fast, or they resolve my complaints immediately. I don't even have to, do a song and dance to get a reimbursement. For them, it's no problem because they're thinking long term, right? There's many things that you can do. A mutual friend of ours, John Rulin, does the gifting program,
Yes.
the giftology. There's that element of customer experience. For me, to build a great customer experience, and that's part of the reason why we've been able to build our company so quickly, is it's not just wow experiences. You often hear that, right? That's an element of it. But for me, what I believe in my research and my study and my countless conversations I'm having with entrepreneurs or with customers, is that they want something predictable, right? Something that is consistent, one that saves them time. So they don't want to have to go back. I'll give you an example. So meetings and event space, I would imagine that you guys sign contracts with your customers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So I will think differently of a company that asks me to print, sign, and scan an agreement back. Can't you invest in DocuSign? Right? Like it's those little things, those little interactions make it easy for me, seamless. And if I believe that you are going to deliver a pain-free customer experience, guess what? I'll pay more.
Yeah.
Right.
And I must say that the experience at Baro, when I went there last time I was in Toronto, the place is beautiful. The food is excellent. The service was amazing. It was a home run.
And you know what? That's almost irrelevant to me. And you know why? Because I want to get better.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm very, what worries me is resting on our laurels from last year.
Complacency?
Perfect. Right? Your vocabulary is much better than mine. I never paid attention in elementary school. When I have kids, I'm going to say, listen, if you're going to pay attention in grade 3 and 4 English.
Any English word you would need, ask a Belgian immigrant.
Really?
I'm kidding.
Okay. Yeah. But like for anybody that cares to listen, I started my career in customer experience management, right? Like that was my thing. But I soon realized that you can't have a good customer experience if the people that you work with don't like working with you.
Yeah.
If they don't want to represent the brand well, right? Because you aren't scalable. Michel Falcon can't be at every venue, every single day, every single moment, right? It's really the people that deliver the experience that defines it for customers.
Talking about Michel Falcon, I'd like to end this conversation with talking about you, the entrepreneur, the creator, the never complacent person. You decide now to stop this adventure and start another one. Can you take us through the thinking process? What happened and then what are you doing now?
Yeah. So I become disengaged when I'm bored, and when things are just repetitive for me. I could have joined my partners to open a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth location in Toronto and maybe in different countries. But we figured it out. The challenge wasn't really there anymore. So what I've decided, and I was actually going to sign a lease a few days before COVID-19 really impacted the global economy, was I'm going to stay in restaurants, but it's going to be quick service restaurants. I'm Peruvian, and if you've ever had Peruvian food, you most likely really, really liked it.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
The reason that a lot of people haven't had Peruvian food, and what I'm about to say is acceptable because I'm Peruvian, is that Peruvians are awful at marketing anything they're good at. Okay, so that is why Peruvian food has not scaled like Italian food or Greek food. I want to solve.
If I may interrupt you, but to your point, I have people also from Peruvian origin in my team.
Oh, really?
And oh yeah,
It's amazing.
And they, I wanted to go to welcome them. I wanted to find a restaurant that they like, and we wanted to go to a Peruvian restaurant, and we had to look for it. And we arrived there, and absolutely delicious. With the drink, like the red fruit drink,
Chiche morada.
chiche morada.
Yeah,
I love it. And the whole meal was amazing.
So let me tell you a couple things here. So chicha morada is made from a purple corn. It's almost like eggplant. It looks like eggplant. Mm-hmm. That purple corn has 8 times more antioxidants than blueberries. Peru is the #1 exporter of quinoa in the world. Peru has 4,500 different types of potatoes. They are the potato capital of the world. Going back to what I said, they're not good at marketing. So that is why Peruvian food isn't a household name like Italian or Greek or so forth. So the next business is going to be like, if you've ever eaten at Chipotle, the Mexican grill, I'm trying to build the Chipotle of Peruvian food. Wow. I've had a little bit of a roadblock with this whole COVID-19 thing, but I'm working around it. This very well could be the last thing that I do in my career. Because I'm a student of business. Like, as soon as we're done recording here, I'm going to go for a walk and listen to a podcast about some sort of business story, because I always want to learn. I always, like I said, I don't want to be complacent. And this very well, I've always been, I've like revered, Howard Schultz, Sarah Blakely from Spanx, like these great entrepreneurs. Yeah. And, I would like to build a company that, Eric goes to Belgium and he sees one of my restaurants. He goes to Australia, he sees one there too. I would like to build something really cool and something that people, meaning customers, like, employees love, and communities welcome into their cities.
That's awesome. And my last question, from what you just said right now, with the project that you have in mind, with the size of the project that you have in mind and the ambition you have, and the fact that you're transitioning from your previous venture to this one now, is COVID-19 a roadblock or is it an opportunity?
It's a delay, which will turn into a very good opportunity. And one, it's caused us to kind of pivot slightly. So what we're doing instead, because I can't open till 2021, so next year, and I was planning on opening this year, is we're doing a direct-to-consumer product. So Eric could purchase this box, and there's Peruvian spices in there. We're going to teach you how to cook Peruvian food at home, so the brand gets out there. So that helps us in the short term. Yeah. And I don't say this proudly, but this is the fact of the matter, is that restaurants are going to go to business, and if we have the capital as a company, we could scoop up some of those leases, maybe buy some equipment off those people that are going out of business to give them some money on their exit. I take no pride in being this shrewd capitalist and seeing this as a good thing. This is not a good thing. People are losing their livelihoods. But if I can be there and, like I said, purchase some of their equipment and maybe I open stores faster, I'm going to take that opportunity, but it's going to be in an ethical fashion.
Good for you. Good for you. Michel, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Your success is inspiring. I love reading your book. And most importantly, I like the very down-to-earth approach that anybody can actually use to build a great company, regardless of the size, but focusing on people first and make it work for everyone.
I expect you that in 10 years from now, if I have turned into this capitalistic, ego-driven entrepreneur, I expect you to be like, hey, you're a jerk. Calm down. Go back to who you used to be. I'm going to be the same person that I've always been. I don't know how to be anybody else. I don't want to be anybody else. So thank you so much for that. I do try to carry myself in a humble fashion.
Thanks, Michel. And you do the same with me, and I'll do the same with you. That would be perfect.
It's a deal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Michel Falcon, for sharing how you went from zero to $15 million and 200 people in few years. Yes, values are essential, and you've based everything on them. The recruitment process that you apply, absolutely genius, simple to implement for any independent business owners. And of course, the onboarding and the daily coming back always to the values and what you're doing to grow your business. If you have any question, or if you have any people that you're thinking about you want to listen to in the future, reach out to me via email, the Even Business Formula Facebook page, or through LinkedIn. Thank you.